Catapulting Commissions family, what's up, team? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Catapulting Commissions Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Garcia. Today's guest is Matt Coatney. He's a seasoned C-level product and technology executive, entrepreneur, advisor, author, and speaker with over 25 years of experience helping business and technology work better together. He has led divisions and portfolios for large global corporations, co-founded 3 companies, and advised several others. He has been an early stage employee on 2 successful tech startups, advised dozens of business and technology professionals across all stages of company formation and growth. He's launched over a dozen successful products. Matt has expertise in artificial intelligence, automation, future of work, robotics, data analytics, cloud computing, and digital content across a wide range of industry experiences spanning manufacturing, media, law, life sciences, government, and finances. He writes and speaks frequently on business and advanced technology topics. In addition to a TED Talk and keynotes, his works have been published by MIT, HarperCollins, and O'Reilly. He has appeared in books, journals, and international conferences. He is also the author of the Human Cloud book. Matt, you're a bona fide badass, man. Welcome to the Catapulting Commissions Podcast.
Thank you, Anthony. And it may sound more impressive than it is, where it really is just, I love a lot of things and often can't pick one. So I just do a lot.
No worries, man. I mean, that's the beauty of what we do, right? I mean,
That it is.
I love doing things. And so I have found myself just dabbling a little this, dabbling that. Now you have your core expertise. So I totally get it, man. Let's talk about it, right? The Human Cloud book. Available right now on Amazon. You have the Human Cloud Podcast, Catapulting Commissions family. You'll get the links to both of those in the show notes. Can you help me understand what is the premise behind the Human Cloud book, and what can my audience expect by learning from it?
Sure. And I'll tell you, the book launched in January of this year, but we actually wrote it and sent it off to the publisher in January of 2020, which means 2 months before the pandemic. And it's all about the future of work and predominantly virtual project-based work and different styles of that, including things like freelancing, but then also technology and AI and the oncoming automation revolution that we're seeing. And so we wrote all that saying in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to get to these things. And then 2 months later, the pandemic happened, and fast forward. So it really was timely in that a lot of these are more prescient topics now than certainly when we were first writing them.
So 100%. I mean, I think I've made the joke multiple times on air, and I joke with my colleagues. There's no graduate program that was teaching people how to overcome a pandemic. So it was really, truly the best education for thought leaders and executives and C-suite individuals. But you talk about the Human Cloud in the terms of the future of work and automation. So I hear the automation and freelancing. Are we going to lose what you and I both know as the modern day workspace, right? For sales professionals. Let's say a sales professional gets hired for a company. I go work for XYZ company, Fortune 500 company. I get paid a small salary, I get paid a lot of commissions, bonuses, and I go sell this product, hand to hand, door to door, in face combat. Are you saying that that's going to be changing, or are we going to adapt? Are we having a new innovation on that?
Yeah, I think we will adapt, and I've already seen it happening. If you think about the product life cycle. So I am a lot in technology, so I see product sales and work with a lot of sales folks in that industry. And they're moving organizations sometimes every 2 to 3 years, not because they're poor performers or anything, or they don't like the company. It's because the products mature and sort of fall off, and then the next iteration comes about. And that used to take a decade or more, or you could make a whole career out of it. And today it's just that volatility and flexibility and movement. I think that will naturally start to change how sales leaders think about their teams and how we structure arrangements with salespeople. I don't know too many companies that are doing that yet, but it's got to come because of the talent war and just the nature of how the tech is evolving so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the talent war right now is at an all-time high, right? So I just read
every sector.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is. We're all fighting for the best people. And then at the same time, the great resignation is taking place right now. Forbes, Fortune, Inc., Business Insider, they've all written articles talking about it. I think I just read an article yesterday in Harvard Business Review. So it's people are leaving companies that aren't appreciating them. We're looking at saying, okay, we're going to automate. And then the life cycle of a product, which until you said that right now, Matt, it's never really hit me, because I've talked on the show about sales rep retention, where it's getting shorter and shorter. We have a hard time retaining top salespeople. I've always looked at it literally live on air. I've always looked at it from the aspect of it's a sales leader issue. Like, you can't retain your people. But you're saying in the technical space specifically, which I think goes technical, goes medical. I mean, it goes, I mean, the days of like a tangible, I don't want to say non-electronic product that is amazing, are really slim. I mean, those are, I don't want to say the relics, but it's just, they're slim. Everything has technically advanced this day. So as a product life cycle becomes stale, you're saying we're seeing salespeople saying, okay, I'm going to go to the next best product.
Yeah, your top performers are, and I saw it, a random, not a very interesting field, but storage, like computer storage and cloud storage and all of that. The innovation that's happening there is almost on like a 6 to 12 month cycle. So you're seeing vendors that were top notch 2 years ago being leapfrogged, and then that being leapfrogged again. And the salespeople that I know in that space, they're following the dough, following the money. And they're like, I can get a lot more money over here because it's selling. So that churn is really a challenge. Yeah. But I do think, I will say, I do think there's opportunity for the companies and for the sales leaders. How do you manage to that? How do you get longer sales life cycles out of products? How do you continue to innovate? As a sales leader, how do you get that message and that feedback back to your product people quicker so that they are aware and they're innovating and just not sitting on, resting on their laurels?
Yeah. I mean, I think 100% we have to take an internal look and say, is what we're putting out there top of class? And can it retain top of class? Because if I don't have a top of class product, and I'm not top of class, then I'm not going to have top of class sales reps. It just, the talent war is high, but the dough, you said, you can sell some of the dough follows you. But I know myself specifically, I have had numerous startups in my career who, they'll follow your work. They listen to the podcast. They reach out with some really large numbers to say, hey, will you come sell this new product? And I've joked, I'm like, I have no experience in this product space, right? But they're doing what as a sales rep does. You're trying to find that customer that's going to feed the whales. They're like, okay, who can be my next war hero that can go out and drive revenue? Which brings up a challenge here. I, as a salesperson, grew up in, I would call, the old school sales model, right? Business to business. I was knocking on doors, and I've converted over the past 20 years to being more technically advanced. I have a strong background in medical, so I had to get medically advanced. But one of the questions that I often get asked to me, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this: how do I, as a sales rep, excel in a technical space when I really don't have a technical background? Because I have sat there and I'm like, okay, you're going to go speak to a group of engineers. You're not an engineer. You're a salesperson. Your degree was in communications. You are the person that took the classes in college that were easy. These are the guys that are like thinking leaps and bounds ahead of you. How do I excel in this space? So let's talk about that. Is there something that we're missing? I mean, help me understand here. Yeah,
no, that's great. And we actually talk a bit about that in the book too, about, the question, should everybody go to school and become a developer? And we say no. If you love that, great, but we don't need everybody to be developers. We do need people that understand technical skills at a high level. And I think one of the challenges I've seen with sales folks is they'll dive deep into the minutia of the technology, and they'll miss the higher level design patterns and the pressure points. And so it's, you talk back about your old, sort of the traditional sales model. Pain points, pressure to buy, those types of things still apply. You need to have enough technical vernacular to listen for those, but you don't need to know necessarily all how it works. So it's sort of stepping up a little bit, abstracting up the stack. And as long as you do that, I've seen people be very effective that are not, and that's fine. They're not technical people, but they can pass muster.
Yeah, it really becomes that. The ability to influence, and then is something that, and I would love your take on this. I don't know if we're going to ever be able to automate the ability to actually influence somebody. I know we can automate a lot of different areas, but that ability to influence, which is really what we're looking for in a sales process, no matter if I'm, one-to-one traditional old school sales, or if I'm in a long, complex sales cycle and I'm trying to navigate a Fortune 500 company to get to the C-suite executive decision team. Everybody in front of me that I'm speaking to, I have to influence to either support me, say yes, advance me on in the process. We can't really, in my opinion, I don't see that ever being automated. I see other parts of the sales process being automated in the future. But what you're saying is just take the time to educate yourself truly in that technical space. Don't need to code, don't need to develop, but you do need to know what we're speaking about. Is that
Right.
a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment. And if you study those patterns and sort of the design of it as opposed to the details, you're much more nimble as well, because as the detailed technologies change, you still understand the concepts and you evolve with it. So it's a way of future proofing as well, and that cuts across whether you're a leader, an executive business, executive finance, whatever. So it's a universal skill. The other thing I'd say that I've found, technology is becoming very good at automating the kinds of things that we would normally spend a lot of time on but do not add value. Mm-hmm. So it's the administration, it's the billing and the CRM management and the contact management and communication drafting, social media, all of these things that take a lot of time but aren't necessarily a lot of brain power. And you can use that so that instead of spending 80% of your time doing that, you're automating that, and you can spend all of your time or most of your time out there actually talking with customers and influencing.
Yeah.
Without needing a super expensive sales enablement team, right? You could have a few people that understand sales enablement and use the technology to its most advantage. Yeah.
I'll tell you this something, Matt. I completely, that makes a lot of sense when you're saying the automation. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience, when you introduce technology or automation to a sales team, and I hate saying this because it sounds, I just got to be blunt. I don't ever lie on the show, right? There's two, at this point, there's 3 generations in the workforce, right? You have a generation in the workforce that's going to be like, Anthony, I've been working and doing this capacity for 25 years. I'm not using this new widget, this new app, whatever. Like, I like my handwritten notebook. I like my handwritten emails. Just leave me alone. You have the mid-range group, right? So, your millennials in the workforce that are like, okay, I can adapt. You like, I feel like those are the jump balls. Some are like, yeah, I'll adapt. Some hold on. Then you have your younger generation. I don't know what the Generation Z or whatever they're called now. Yeah. Who come in with full automation, fully technically advanced, and are changing things. So as a sales leader, right, there's someone listening to this right now that's saying, Matt, I agree with you. I want to have an automation take place in my sales force. I have a sales force of 600 sales reps. We do $500 million in annual revenue. However, if I'm going to go invest in an automation system, how do I get adoption from my entire sales team?
Mm-hmm. The entire is the hard part. The industries that I work a lot with professionals, predominantly lawyers and doctors.
Okay.
And so the same challenges you just described run the gamut there in spades. And I found you can't, if you strive for 100% adoption, you better have some very strong incentives and penalties to be able to manage that, because doing it voluntarily is nearly impossible. And in a partnership model like a law firm, you can't. So it really comes down to, again, using those skills of influence, following the John Cotter. You mentioned Harvard Business Review earlier. John Cotter is a professor there, and he has a book called Leading Change. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to introduce anything, a new process, automation, etc., read that book, follow that process, because it talks about how you can build champions, you get early wins, and you start building and integrating it into the culture. And what I have done in the past for technology adoption is you measure it. So measure what your adoption rates are for those and set a benchmark, set a goal. You do your sort of whatever it is, your communications and your adoption awareness training, all of that, and then measure that over time and see how you're progressing toward your goal. But if you set a goal at 100%, that's really, really tough. It really is, to be honest. So maybe you get 70% of the way there, you're seeing the value of it, and you call it good enough.
I like what you're saying there, because it is setting realistic expectations. But what you just described, Matt, is something that I think we get into sales leadership. We sometimes often forget we have to sell our vision to our sales employees, to our sales teams. And I've seen I've seen technology enhancements roll out in sales companies that have been, hey, let's get an early group of adopters. Let's innovate. Let's sell. Let's do what you just said, which is, let me sell you why this is going to be impactful, and not sell you in the aspect of, oh, here's, I don't need all the bells and whistles. I need results. I need to roll this out in a fashion that I can get accustomed to, right? It's the same way. How do you Dabo Sweeney, right? How do you eat an elephant? You take one bite at a time. So you go really slowly on it. Versus, I've also seen sales companies, hey, hard stop. We're going to cut off your current method of your CRM or whatever you're doing on October 1, and on October 2, you're using this new system. And I think that's where the talent war comes in, because you take a disgruntled employee who's like, you're changing my method. New startup comes up that may not have the structure to set up the automation or can invest in it, but is great product, wants to invest in something, and says, okay, I'm going to excel and sell this product or this service to you without having to change what you're currently doing. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. So it does. And I was a software developer early in my career and sort of made the pivot into management. And I will tell you, sort of fell flat on my face many a time as I learned the hard way. It's the same, I think, with sales professionals that become sales leaders. It's a different job. You are now a leader, and that is a hard transition for many to make. It comes with practice and learning to get better at it, but it's not a natural transition for many of us. And so I'd say don't be too hard on yourself, but also take the effort, learn these kind of techniques, and find mentors that can coach you through this, because it's a big shift. I'm sure you've talked about that on the show in the past.
I have, but Matt, I'm definitely going to peel some layers back on that, because what you just said right now it seems to be a challenge that we've experienced over and over again. I recorded a show once that just said, just because you're a great sales professional, it doesn't mean you're a great sales leader. It's the hard reality, right? Salespeople, we go from individual contributor to sales manager, you go to team leader, head coach, right? And it's no longer about you. And then as you go up, and there's this pivotal point where I really haven't peeled the layers back yet, but there's a pivotal point in the career advancement of a sales professional where you go from sales rep to sales manager to sales executive to C-suite, where your interests slowly change, right? As a sales professional, my interests are, what's in it for me? How can I make the most commission for my family? How can I provide stability? As a sales manager, then it becomes, how can I create everlasting change for my sales team and get people excited? Somewhere between that sales manager role to the entry door to the C-suite, it goes from that to bottom line, profitability. And then you go to the C-suite, and if you're a publicly traded company, then it goes to shareholders, and your responsibilities will shift. We're all on the same team. We're going in the same direction, but we just have different people we report to. I would love to hear your take on some of the mistakes to avoid, and let's just dive through it. As someone who advances that path to leadership, what are some of the mistakes they can avoid, and what are some of the mistakes you made as you advance through leadership? You've had different capacities, as you said, sales, software, working it all your way up into a leadership, startup companies, experienced companies. Love to hear your take on this.
Sure. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. To me, the biggest hurdle for people is the jump from manager to, let's say, director or VP, because the frame of reference completely shifts from I'm doing what's best for my team to I'm doing what's best for the company. And that is, it seems like a natural, and you just say it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But the hang up is, so let's say someone goes from a sales manager to a sales VP. Well, naturally, right? That means that they've got a larger team and they're just looking after that larger team. No, they need to be much, much more engaged with product. They need to have an eye toward marketing and what's the long-term investment and what's the trade-off. If we sell something we can't really deliver on, it's great for sales, but it's bad for delivery. A salesperson might say, well, I don't care, but the sales VP absolutely should say. So that transition, and it's hard for so many people. But otherwise, so from just sheer management, like the mistakes I've made, you find the sweet spot, because I think for all of us that are experts in our field, we are micromanagers when we first move into management, because we have it done our way and we're going to tell everybody how to do it. And it's our way and the only way. And it's so tough. And you will burn your people out and they will leave. And so then I sort of pivoted. I said, well, I'm controlling too much. I need to let go of the reins, and I let go too much. very laissez-faire, and I'll just, do whatever you want. I'm here to support you. I'm the nice guy. I'm here to support you. And they didn't have the support they needed to grow. And the same problem happened. So it really was finding that middle ground. And there's you may know it, Anthony, there's a discipline and a training sort of coaching program around something called situational leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not situational to just the individual. It actually goes down to the individual and the task and how capable and confident they are. And everybody goes through a journey. And so that was one of the big mistakes. You have a top performer and you just give him everything and you don't give him any coaching. And he gets something, then all of a sudden he's not as good at, and he doesn't feel supported, he or she, and they're stuck. And then they come to you for help and you're like, you got this, you're good. And so it's that understanding and adapting your management style and coaching to them that's so essential. So there's a couple things that I've definitely stumbled my way through.
Well, one, appreciate you sharing the vulnerability of stumbling your way, right? We often get to the point, we only see the end product. So I look at people and say, okay, well, I see Matt, he wrote a great book. He sounds intelligent. He has some great thoughts. Holy crap, Matt, you struggle with things the way everyone else struggled with. So Catapulting Commissions family, I want you to listen to here, right? There is not anybody who woke up and said, hey, I just became the perfect leader. It just doesn't happen. Matt has over 25 years of experience. I'm pushing on 20 years of experience. And I'm telling you guys, it is, we only learn because we make mistakes. I mean, fair enough, Matt. And that's
absolutely.
I hate saying it because some of your mistakes are pretty expensive, but you learn and some mistakes have consequences, right? It's a give and take effect. If you are in a position of sales leadership and you make some major mistakes in how you manage your people, how you roll out your people, the company may not be there to weather that mistake. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean you're a horrible leader. It just means we've learned from when we grow. And obviously you try to short the learning curve through reading books, taking courses, listening to podcasts, but there's nothing that's going to shortcut that real world experience. Right. As you said.
Yeah, no, that's something that I've found as I learned a lot about freelancing as we wrote this book because the co-author is a good friend of mine, is deep into that space. And I'm much more on the technology side. But the benefit of freelancing and even things like micro internships when you're going through school, you just get so many more touches on the ball if you're a soccer fan, right? Or basketball. Mm-hmm. And so it expedites that learning curve, including that failing curve in a safer space because the stakes are smaller. So one of the things I'd say for any leader, sales leaders included, is what are things that you can create, opportunities you can create for your team that let them try in a safer space, a lower stakes game for things that they're not as good at, so that they build that experience yet aren't damaging the company, right? So is there a new client that is sort of the C list and you don't really care? Give it to this person. Let them try it out. You're not giving them to, and that's common sense, but things like that, or other kinds of projects, social media marketing, give the young folks the opportunity to try something innovative, let them fall on their face perhaps, but give them that space.
I love it because that's one of those things that newer leaders, newer sales managers struggle with. And I would even articulate as you work up the corporate ladder that newer VPs, new directors sometimes struggle with, right? Because everything is a representation of the leader. So if I am the regional manager or if I become the director, whatever takes place in my organization is a reflection of me. But I can't trust you with some of the big projects because I'm still, the jury's still, I don't know if you can execute or not. So yeah, give me, pass on some of the C-level stuff to people, let people fail, give them that wiggle room to fail because, if they fail on a C-level project, is it really going to hurt you a lot? Probably not, but you'll gain more from the right person failing, learning to overcome and succeeding on the next opportunity, or you'll even get more impressed if someone does execute on something. You're like, this had a higher level, a higher possibility of failure than a higher possibility of success.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So you talked about freelancing. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on this concept of freelancing and how is this going to change the future of work? Like for, let's say, sales professionals, sales leaders. I mean, everyone talks about it now. I don't think I've never had anybody on the show that's completely outlined. Let's dive into what is freelancing for sales professionals.
So let's start what it is and then how I see it evolving. So freelancing is effectively, you're an independent contractor and it's really just that. So you're an independent contractor. Your source of income is coming from various projects. And I think the difference when you think about freelancing, there's at least this sense that the projects are smaller, more frequent, and you have many more clients. So it's not like you've gone off on your own and you have the same 2 clients you've had for the last 10 years. Okay, that's really not freelancing. It's more dynamic, it's more transient. And what I've seen happen over the last couple of decades is there used to be very bright lines. You were a full-time employee, you were an independent contractor through an agency, or you were an independent consultant that sort of hung up your own shingle. And there was very little movement between those. And typically what you'd see is it was a full-time employee that moved into one of those other things because they did not like the rigor or the structure of one employer, full-time kind of thing. And what I'm seeing now is there's a different, I think people have different needs in different phases of their life. And there's much more mobility between these types of roles. And there's much more mobility within companies to leverage these contingent workforces because the straw that broke the camel's back is the talent war. So if you physically cannot find a full-time person, freelancing is an option. It's usually a very viable option if you just can't find anybody else. And it tends to be more affordable than the agencies that take a fairly big cut above and beyond the individual. So we talked about in the book, the big disintermediation that's occurred with freelancing is that you can reach more people globally, leveraging technology platforms, communication platforms. You can deliver your work mobily so much easier than you could 20 years ago. So freelancing is a much more viable option now. And we're seeing more and more people shift away from being beholden to an agent that's going to take their 40, 50, 100% cut. And they can just market themselves, take more of that home, and still give the client a much more reasonable rate. So that's the shift that we've seen. Is that helpful?
That's completely helpful.
Yeah.
I think, you look at it and you say, using the tools we have today, the ability to freelance is significantly way more impactful. I mean, easier than it's ever been before. I mean, I say that I've had coaching clients in the past that have been continents away, and I'm up at 3:00 in the morning having these incredible, impactful meetings with them. We're working, we're talking, and I'm like, this would have never been possible 10, 15 years ago. Like, it just and the projects, or if I need to do my research or something comes up, I mean, it's all available. Like, there's no excuse for not having any knowledge. You can learn almost anything you want if you're willing to put the time into it. So let's go from an executive point. Like, if I want to find the right freelancer, and you said freelancers are marketing themselves. I hear that, Matt, and I'm like, dude, salespeople are the best salespeople in their lives when it comes to selling themselves. Like, they're going to tell you, I'm the greatest person on planet Earth and I can do X, Y, Z. Like, how do I decipher through the BS and truly find a expert freelancer that's going to be impactful for my project? And I guess the follow-up to that is, if this person's so good, is there a benefit to taking that person from a freelancer, bringing them on board, or do I keep them in that freelancer space, knowing it's a delicate relationship? They could leave me at any given time.
That's right. Yeah. So on your first point, there's this concept as well called portable merit, or merit portability. It used to be that the resume was really our best vehicle to demonstrate what we've done in the past. It isn't really vetted. To your point, you can put whatever you want on a resume short of outright lying and generally get away with it. It's opaque, and you can't really validate it. And so you've got to seek references and things like that. The beauty with things like social media, LinkedIn, the platforms for freelance like Upwork and others, is it's like Amazon. You're putting yourself out there and you're getting reviews. People are commenting on you. Like, your work is getting validated. And that is really, short of obviously having conversations and getting to know the person, it is a great way to really pass that first hump. And if you might find that person that is coming across and purporting things that they really can't deliver on, and they haven't been found out yet, but that cycle is getting shorter and shorter. So generally speaking, you find someone that's talented and it's been corroborated from the sort of the wisdom of the crowds, then generally it's more spot on. And there are agencies, sales enablement and marketing. There's a website called Hello Moss, and we interviewed the CEO and founder, who's out of Amsterdam, and she talked about Their model is they hire out freelancers for marketing and sales enablement, but they vet every single one first. So it's not this loose platform where anybody can show up and sign in. They're actually running them through the paces. They're doing sample projects and they're building that experience before they turn them over to a client. So those sort of like an agency model, but again, it's using technology. It's much, much cheaper.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be something like that for sales. I don't know if there is yet, to be honest. Yeah.
Put that in the entrepreneur data bank.
There you go. Yeah. Pen that.
Mark that note down. Let's reference this show in November. But it's funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's the truth, Matt. You look at it and you say, okay, we are constantly changing. And I'm not sure if you've read the article, and I read it a few years ago. I'm a butcher who wrote it, but it was it was done a study by Oxford University that talked the future of employment and what had the capability of being automated, what wasn't going to be automated. And I mean, if I recall this, the paper's 20 years old now, 15 years old now. And it's coming reality. Now, not everything in that paper is, this is not everything in that paper. They're not Nostradamus. Everything's accurate. But the future really does say, okay, how are we changing and how do I stay attractive as a sales professional, as a sales executive, as a sales leader in this new space? And what you're saying, bottom line, technology is going to need to be our friend. Like, we're going to have to learn all the technical spaces and how to excel in that.
Yes.
Right.
I don't think anyone in any profession, and this includes lawyers, doctors, etc., everybody needs to be technology proficient. Not experts, just proficient. Yeah. And I think too, that relationships, that's stating the obvious, but that are key. But we talk almost about building a tribe. And in our last chapter of the book, we talk about building a tribe. And it's what we mean by that is finding those confidants across industries, across disciplines that you can call on. And it's your network. But having a much broader network than what we may have 30 or 40 years ago when we stayed in one industry and one company for our entire lives. Our networks were very isolated and local. So I would encourage salespeople and sales leaders, network with professionals in sales in different industries, other product lines, other geographies, like go broad, but build deep connections with those individuals, and they will serve you well moving forward, because we're all going to become, including executives, we're all going to be more portable in the future than certainly we were 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. And I think that networking component, you mentioned different sectors, salespeople, go network with your IT department, go network with your HR. I mean, we have to build this team, right? This spider web of people who are fans for you, right? I mean, you want a raving fan of your work because projects are growing, technology is changing, and if you are in that corporate America space, you never know when your sales division may or may not be on the chopping block. Like you want to have, hey, I know Anthony is really profound in this skill or has done this. I think he'd be great on this new project we're working on. I mean, it's the ugly reality, right? Work is changing. We have to stay advanced on it. We have to use technology. We have to find ways to innovate. So much so, and you'll get a kick out of this. Matt. I am part of a bunch of like sales groups on Facebook and different things. And every now and then, when I want to entertain myself, there's a sales group of people, and I love car salespeople, but I've shared with car salespeople, I think you are first up on the chopping block to be completely automated and excluded. And they fight. I mean, they fire back at me so hard. I mean, I've said that, and I've gotten reviews for my book that have been negative. I mean, they attack me. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm just saying, like, I think 100%. I mean, I just bought a car this week. I did everything online other than going in and picking up the car. It was pretty done online. And the car salesperson was really just like, hey, is this what you looked at online? Kind of. That was it. There was no... It just doesn't exist. So
it's like realtors too. And I look at realtors and I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are cleaning up. And some of them work super hard, and I'm not disparaging all of them, but some of them, they just show up glad hand with a cup of coffee and they made $50,000 in the transaction. But all of it, the people did the finding, the lawyers did the contracts, the title company did everybody else did everything. And your point, all the information is out there now.
Yeah.
So if you're in a information parity space, look out.
100%.
It's happening in corporate too. That is the one thing I've seen in the last 5 years. Corporate buyers are much, much more sophisticated than they were even 5 or 10 years ago. And the information, that opaqueness to pricing and things like that is starting to go away. And that's, I love to see it. I love to see it because it then lets you have more earnest, real conversations with your clients. Yeah. So it's everywhere.
Automation's taking place, guys. Get in front of it. Ensure that you're staying attractive. Ensure that you are sharpening the tools for who you are, right? If the company you're working with there's freelance opportunities. At the end of the day, you as a sales professional, as a sales leader, you need to be the best version of yourself, regardless of what name's on your business card, what name is after your email, because truth be told, the talent war is on. And if you ever think it's not, trust me, just make yourself available online. You'll see everyone has something for you to work on. Catapulting Commissions family, Matt Coatney joined me today for the Catapulting Commissions sales podcast with myself. Sorry, wrapping up, had some coffee in my mouth. Human Cloud. Guys, go and get it. It's available. You'll find the link. Matt, where can people learn more about you?
Sure. Easiest place is LinkedIn. Very active there. Matt Coatney. Hard to miss. So look forward to engaging. Please reach out. Love to hear from you.
Perfect. Catapulting Commissions family, go do me a favor. Go get connected with Matt. Pick up the Human Cloud, and you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you next week.